It's Sunday night before historic January 20th and Trump's second term. What a comeback it's been. Wow. And do we need to come back from the brink of just absolute disaster? Gosh, we cannot get rid of Biden fast enough. Go away. Absolutely go away. And your staff, who actually have been the people running things for the entire time. That's right. I mean, it's been alarming, the stories coming out. Of course, Wall Street Journal, I think it came out, maybe it was in December. They wrote this amazing story, very, very long form, about how really Biden wasn't really handling anything day to day, doing nothing, just a shadow government. Yeah, okay, great. They did. They got, Edith Wilson got away with it too when Woodrow Wilson was incapacitated by a stroke. It's not right. None of it's right. But these people knew it. The media knew it. And I don't know if you missed it or not, but Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Republican, was on with the Free Press. And this is what he said about his revelation about Biden really isn't running things. Take a listen.
We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, "The Speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone?" And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, "Oh, no, he did it." So he called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, "Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? I don't understand. Liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, "Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order 3 weeks ago." And he goes, "No, I didn't do that." And he's arguing with me. I said, "Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that." And he goes, "Oh, you talk about natural gas." "Yes, sir." He said, No, you misunderstand. He said, "What I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG." I said, "No, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security." It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
Can you imagine? How many other executive orders were the same thing? How many? Who knew? We're going to take a quick call here from Greg in LaGrange, if we can get him up. Greg, welcome to the program. Thanks for calling in.
Sure. I just have one question for Mike Johnson. Then why was he allowed to continue as the president? Why didn't they move and try and take some sort of action to limit his ability to make decisions to possibly and arguably put our country in danger? Why did he know that? That bothered me that he came out and said it just like that, because they knew.
Everybody knew. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, I don't know, Greg. That's a really good point. It feels like many of the Republicans just let it play out the way it played out too, and they weren't strong enough on it. Great point. Thanks for the call, Greg. I really appreciate you listening in and calling in. Okay. Also to talk about that, we now have Garrett Ziegler on the phone. Garrett, welcome to the program. You've been on quite a bit. I love having you on. And I also wanted to have you on not only about this. I mean, obviously, staff has been running everything, and we all know too that the prosecutor said you can't prosecute Biden for having classified documents in his garage because he really doesn't even know that he had classified documents on his garage, and he would be incompetent to stand trial. And yet everybody's covered for him for 4 long years. And again, if people don't know, Garrett Ziegler he wrote the Biden laptop, and he's been kind of having fun with that lately. in D.C. I know you bought a box truck with signage and you had that going around January 6th.
Yeah.
And then now, are you in D.C. right now as well? I
am. If there's any background noise, we are celebrating coming out of the 4 years in the wilderness, I call it. T-minus 15 hours until he puts his hand on the Bible. And the long reign of Joe Biden will, Joe could, weirdly, he's so gone, like the caller said, and like even Mike Johnson admitted, that he could die in his sleep tonight. Joe, and that's why I think they pardoned Hunter not on the morning of January 20th, which is customary. Remember, Bill Clinton did it for Mark Rich on the way out, the final hours. Mm-hmm. We thought that Joey was going to do that for Hunter, but I think Hunter and everybody else is so concerned about his health that they wanted to do it before, God forbid, he dies. I don't think he's going to have a post-presidency like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's family's got to be very happy right now because they're no longer going to be looked at as the family of the worst president of the modern era. I think Joe will take that. But you know what? I agree with the caller, though. If the House Republicans were serious, they could have impeached him for not just unwillingness to, or basically inability to effectuate the office of the presidency, but the invasion. Everybody's talking about what are his first orders tomorrow. We just learned that the order for the 51 former spooks to get their security clearance suspended and revoked has been written. That's news. It's
awesome.
Expected to be signed within about 18 hours. But then I'll be at the swearing in tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm very much looking forward to those 51 spooks. Well, it's actually 49 because 2 have since passed away. But even more than that, for the sake of the country.
Let me cut in here real quick, Garrett. Though, okay, Mike Morrell sits as a senior policy advisor at the Center for Counterterrorism at West Point. He's to be stricken from that post ASAP, off the roster.
I couldn't agree more. And guess what? Our mutual friend Ron Scott, along with the country at large, should be experiencing Jubilee as well because Matt Lohmeyer got the Undersecretary of the Air Force. That's occurred since I spoke with you last. That's a great pick, too.
Well, we just had Ron Scott on in the half hour before you, so I'm getting 2 of my favorites on back to back. But go ahead. I mean, so that's an executive.
Well, that's a huge position.
Wait, you're not in the rotunda, are you? You're in the overflow 20,000 seat arena, or where do you get your ticket?
We got our tickets through Peter Navarro.
So are you in the rotunda?
We're expecting to, yeah.
Oh
unless they do it unless they do it 11th hour, pull the rug out, and that's how this weekend's gone, quite frankly. Unless they pull an 11th hour rug out where only members get to go. Yeah. So we're at a ball. This is our first time out here. Obviously, I didn't know my wife at the time in 2017 when he got inaugurated. This is our first one together. So we did, the three little babies are with the grandparents. So what I wanted to do the show because it's so timely, considering we're in the waning final hours of Joe's regime. But they haven't dropped the lawsuit against us, as I spoke to you, I think 4 weeks ago now. Mm-hmm. The lawsuit or the trial is set for September 6, 2025. So your listeners will know that even though Hunter's been criminally absolved at the federal level, he is still not giving up his lawsuit against us. They want to impose cost and really send a message because of how much they think we harmed them just by exposing what they did. It's not like we did anything to Hunter. We're just talking about his own conduct. So he should really be mad at himself.
So you'll have to get through, though, the California court system, then the Ninth Circuit, and then if you have to go to the Supreme Court to prove that this really wasn't defamation, all you did was print the truth.
Yeah, and it hinges on the data law that he's suing us under. And, in fact, I urge all your listeners to not just go to our legal defense fund, go to our Twitter page, Marco Polo 501c3, all the links are there, but also support Illinois Leaks, a.k.a. Edgar County Watchdogs, in their lawfare fight. Those scoundrels up in DuPage County still haven't dropped the case, even though Andrzejewski tragically passed. I mean, it's just disgusting. Our nonprofit gave some money to their legal defense fund a couple of weeks ago, and I urge all your listeners to do so because, I mean, they're doing it they're just one of the most important groups in the country, and I always I don't know if I told you this on air, but I appreciate every time you have them on because they need all the recognition they can get. They're doing phenomenal work. I subscribe to all their email updates, and every single one of them is great.
Yeah, no, they will be on. They're always usually on the 8:35 half hour, and we're going to be covering the Orland Park
So they might even be listening to this.
District.
This wasn't paid for by them, by the way. This is all organic. I love their work.
No, I know. It's not like I teed this up at all. You're like great promoting at this. Okay, so what's the atmosphere out there in Washington, D.C.? Cold, but fun? Well,
I was just going to say the weather is, I know we're on the airwaves, the weather is crappy, I'll put it that way, in the superlative. It couldn't be worse weather. We just got confirmation tonight via Adam Housley. I cannot confirm this myself. I got it through him via Twitter that the audible that he called on Friday was not just weather related. Apparently they did have some sort of threat to move it indoors inside the rotunda.
Well, so that's the $64,000 question. I mean, Caroline Leavitt was on Fox News this morning saying, no, this is completely weather related. And yet if you're following anything on X, everybody believes that there's a security concern more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how do you see it? Yeah, it's both.
My honest opinion is that there's nothing statutorily mandating that he take the oath in D.C. I would prefer, George Washington took it in Manhattan. And he could have done it at his club in Florida, or he could have rented out Daytona Beach 500 Speedway and done it in the middle of there. That's what I would have done, so you could fit 500,000 people in the stands and in the infield. But that's spilt milk under the bridge. So if you're going to have it in D.C., you might as well be as safe as possible. And like he's doing, just live stream it. I mean, I would do it from the Oval if it were me, just to cut down. It sounds crass, but I don't want his head to get blown off, and it almost did in July. So it's just pleasantries at this point. I care, we heard that there's going to be an operation in Chicago with Tom Homan, maybe on the 22nd. Mm-hmm. If they don't do that, I'll be the first person to say, you're all bark, little bite. We have to. So what I'm trying to say is this is all. I mean,
the Wall Street Journal basically said that Chicago's going to be first up, 200 ICE officers here on Tuesday morning. I agree with you. They've been talking about it now for like a year, and they've been talking more specifically about Chicago for a month. Time to do it.
Exactly. And so I'm not really into the ball scene. I'm just here because I think it's the greatest comeback story in modern political history. I don't know Grover Cleveland's the only other man to serve non-concurrent terms, so you really got to go back to Grover Cleveland. I want to be here for the historical nature of it. And I'm really proud of Peter, my old boss, who got a same position again. He'll be fighting all the great battles.
So great.
But Peter's been working on those 200 orders. Peter is the type where nothing is beneath him. Peter's the type, he's one of the few head honchos who will open up a Word document and write the damn thing himself. Sorry, pardon my French. He will write the orders himself, which is rare amongst really famous people. So I guarantee you for the past 45 days, he has been staring over a Microsoft Word processor, putting together these orders about trade. And I expect a complete sealing of the border in terms of a proclamation. What?
It gives me even more confidence because he basically Trump learned a lot his first term about personnel, and this time he came back with people that are committed constitutionalists, committed Americans, truth tellers, and for the most part they all look good too, and they can speak well. So that's how he picked them. Yeah, no, it's going to be fun to watch. Garrett, I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your night and the festivities there in D.C. to join us on the program and give us a firsthand look. And I'm so jealous. You're going to be in the rotunda for the swearing in. That's great. I mean, honestly, I wasn't planning on going. I thought it was going to be like a lot of work to actually go to anything there. So I said no.
It's a total zoo. It's a total zoo. My wife, we wanted our car just because, everything. We drove all day Friday because we like the freedom of having a vehicle out here because the metro is not reliable. But I'm just so concerned about tomorrow night, right? I want him to get back into the Oval seat and do some stuff. So
Absolutely.
It's all for naught if he doesn't do that. But I think he will. There'll be personnel mistakes. Not everybody bats 1,000.
Yeah, but when you got Peter Navarro pushing you, I don't think he's a pushover, and so that gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter will be absolutely
Yes.
phenomenal. Peter and
Yes.
Stephen Miller will both be great. It's all these other folks that we need to watch.
Yes.
Trust but verify, right?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, hey, thanks a lot for joining me on The Real Story.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. You have a great time there. Send some pictures my way. Okay.
God bless you.
And we'll be right back with The Real Story. This is Jeanne Ives. I'm going to talk.